Okay, we're going to go ahead and start the recording, and I appreciate the couple people that are here. Man, I just got off a very powerful call with a guest speaker that John had on the half-hour power hour or whatever it's called, with a kid in San Francisco that's 32 years old, and he sells like 100 million a year in real estate. And it was just interesting because it's exactly what I needed to hear. Same stuff I always heard through all my coaching and all the seminars. Everything I do is very to the point. And it was one of the things that one of the things I'm going to do after that call is that I would recommend everybody do is, take an inventory of where you're at in your business right now. Number one, why are you doing this? What's your goals? And the biggest thing is why. Honestly, I've been a little bit complacent lately, and I haven't been. I need to do that. I need to take an inventory of where I'm at, why I have certain goals, where I'm at as far as achieving those goals, and do a real searching inventory of all that, and kind of get reinvigorated about the process. And if I'm not willing to work hard, if any of us aren't willing to work hard at this, you're gonna get out of it what you put into it. And I can say that I've tested the easy way and the hard way. And we're going to have stress in our lives either way. If we're busy, we're going to have it's going to be stressful because we're going to be working with a lot of people. We're going to have a lot of money coming in. If we're not working hard and we don't have a lot of business, we're going to be stressed out because of finances. So get over it. It's either work hard now and you can rest and relax later, but now is the time, especially this time of year. So I'm taking an inventory of my business, evaluating all the systems, everything, all the people, all the systems and everything involved with it, and figuring out if I'm on the right track or what I need to change, what I need to improve. And that's a constant thing that as a business owner we need to do. I need to treat this like a business. So on that note, we're going to talk about a couple of basic business systems, just like the conversation we just had with Josh. I always take 100% ownership of everything that I do, and it's my fault for not letting Josh know that we had the ability to take to log all of the people that come into an open house in KV Core, because that is a very powerful system for follow-up. So that's why we have basic business systems. That's why we try to get everything systemized. And we want it to be repeatable. We want to be able to teach somebody how to operate our business if we're not there. So we want to take the approach of, learning how to do it the right way so we can teach it to somebody else. And on that note, Jesse, what are we going to talk about today?
We got about 5 or 6 little areas that we want to help explain for you guys. And starting off, what we Steve just noted, managing your leads. Business systems is about leveraging people. It's about leveraging technology. It's about leveraging processes. So KV Core is exactly that. It follows up with your leads for you. It alerts you when you should take a certain action. Like maybe you need to call them, or they looked at 5 properties and now it gives you a to-do item. Do this item, follow up with that person, call them, text them. Say, hey, how did you like those properties? I saw you saved one or you favorited one of them. You have any questions about it? You want to set up a showing? Get everyone into KV Core. This is critical for systemizing and running efficiently. You want to talk about this one, Steve?
Yeah, so it's important that, we have these systems set up so we can make, we have a process for everything, because when you start getting busy, you're not going to be able to start learning the processes. You're not going to have time to start figuring everything out. It needs to be done now. So Didja Sign, if anybody is new to EXP and they haven't done a transaction yet, please go into Didja Sign and start learning how to use that. It's integrated with SkySlope. It's all part of the cloud-based business that we have. Take 10 minutes, do a couple of contracts in there. It's going to save you hours of time and stress when you have to get a contract in quickly. So make sure that you're using Didja Sign. It's part of what we pay for, so there's no reason not to use it. Going to the next one, Jesse. Also, I've noticed it's always important to get your vendors lined up and in place. One of the things that we have, I don't know if everybody knows about this, but in the MLS, we have a tab where you can put your vendor list in there. Why is that important? Because it's going to save you a lot of time. You're able to put, let's say you have, I think you should have 2 lenders that you go to, 2 inspectors. You should have a couple of real estate attorneys. Jesse and I were talking about a SkySlope transaction coordinator. Jesse, tell them a little bit about that.
Yeah, so SkySlope has trained EXP transaction coordinators. So I don't manage my documents. I don't make sure everything is signed. I don't make sure that all the things that EXP requires of me as an agent are done. I let my transaction coordinator do that. I pay them about, I think it's $250 a transaction. Again, they are trained to work with EXP brokerage. And so they make sure all the state compliance, like I'm in California, Illinois, you guys got a lot of probably disclosures and things that need to be done. They make sure that gets done. As long as they have my clients' email addresses and the escrow or the real estate attorney's email addresses, they can kind of make sure all that stuff is done. So don't stress out like, oh my goodness, there's paperwork and all this stuff. Let them kind of handle the bulk of that. And you don't have to do it, but I do it, and then make sure.
And I would say this: if you've never done a transaction before, handle the first 1 or 2 yourself, so you can get familiar with the process. But I did not realize that we had $250 paid transaction coordinators. You know, that's money well spent. If you're doing more than 2 or 3 deals a month, that'll come in as a huge help. So again, going back to this vendor list, and why would you want to put that in the MLS vendor list? Because when you're filling out a contract from the MLS, when you're writing a contract on making an offer on one of the listings that are in there for your buyer, it allows you to automatically input vendors into the contract. So you can put the attorney on there if they're using that attorney. You can put the lender in there if they're using that lender, and it's just a click of the mouse, as opposed to writing in the name, email address, phone number, blah, 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 blah. So that saves a ton of time. So have your lenders, your inspectors in the MLS, but have a list of your vendor list. Also have a couple of photographers, preferably one that also does virtual tours, because that's a big thing now. This is for listings. If you're listing property, you want to make sure you already have your signs ordered. If you're putting the signs out yourself, you have them delivered to your house, and then you put them out as you get a listing. If you want to use Oakley Sign Company, it's very inexpensive. It's like $35 per sign, and they store it at their facility. You just input the information when you have a listing, and they go out there and put it out in the yard within like 48 to 72 hours. Use showing time. That's very important. I believe there's some of that is free within the MLS. I think I pay like $5 or $6 a month to have up to 20 listings in showing time. And that is a no-brainer. There's a link right at the bottom of each listing that says, click here for showing time, showing instructions. So you put all the showing information, instructions into their website, and they will contact the seller and set up the showing. So an agent calls in, the agent gives them their ID information and says, I want to show 123 Main Street, and then their office will coordinate that and make the call for you. And it can also just be done with the click of a mouse on the link too. So staging companies, I don't do a lot of staging. I have in the past. You should, get a couple staging companies on your list as well as far as vendors. But this is, you know, one of those things that may look stupid or may not seem that important. I can guarantee you it's going to be important for you at some point if you're selling properties.
Yeah, you're gonna have a client. You'll have a client that'll ask you, well, what about staging, right? Or how much does staging cost? You want to at least have an answer for them. Like, yeah, that's optional if you want to do it, and it costs approximately X.
Yep. Yeah, you want to be prepared. All right, Jesse, what else you got, buddy?
So you want to create a checklist. So, I mean, if it's digital, or some people like it printed out and it's like a legal sheet and it's just got every step of the process of from start to till you collect the check or deliver the keys. You want to have those processes mapped out so you don't miss anything. It could make the deal crumble and fall apart if you miss something that's very critical, and all of a sudden
happens, guys.
It happens.
Have a checklist. If you want a checklist, I have a listing and pending contract checklist. You should have a buyer process checklist as well. You can get these online a million different places.
I think Workspace has some too.
Workspace has them as well. So does I'm sure EXP Marketing Center has one. But this is really important if you have more than 1 or 2 deals going on at a time. If you have a checklist, you know, to go through and see when's the inspection, when's the attorney review and inspection period over with? When is, you know, have they scheduled the appraisal? Because, you know, I've had months where I've had 25 closings in a month, and you can only imagine if I didn't have a checklist, how confusing that would be to figure out what process each one of these deals are in. And I'm telling you, it's no different if you have 25 or you have 5. It's going to get confusing if you're trying to sell at a high level and you don't have everything in a checklist. There's something like 50 items that need to be done minimum on each side of the transaction.
We're looking over your shoulder and we see a huge board that you have to track a lot of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's critical. When is the inspection going to be? When are contingency removals? All of those little things can really screw you up and make you look like the fool if you don't have a checklist. So
yeah, you need to know when the closing date is, when, you know, all the details are important because they're going to come up throughout the process.
And when you're done with the transaction, you should have a list. What happens when this transaction's done? I need to make sure I follow up with this buyer, this seller every 6 months or on, you know, your regular,
you know, to get a review or whatever. And that's another thing we were talking about, Jesse. I have a calendar on my computer and I have a calendar on the wall. And the most important one that I have is the calendar on my computer. I have it in, I think it's a Google Calendar. I put everything in there. I put these calls in the calendar. So I have it blocked off. So I know that this is something that I can't schedule over. I put my prospecting time in the calendar. I put my appointments in the calendar. Everything goes in a calendar. It's, you know, I have to run this like a business. That's the way it was suggested to me. And that's definitely the way I would suggest doing it, is to have everything very organized. And all this stuff we're talking about can be set up and going in one day. So if you take the one day to do all this stuff, it's going to save you hours and hours and hours of stress and headaches down the road. And it's very simple to do.
Yep. I time block stuff. So I put everything in time blocks. I'm doing certain things at certain times. It is a lifesaver. It'll keep your sanity.
As you're going through transactions, and if you don't have all this, you know, set up, or even if you do, every time you're going through a transaction during the day, you should ask yourself, you know, how can I systemize what I'm doing? How can I systemize this so when and if I get an admin or somebody on the team, like another agent, how can I learn this and systemize it so I can teach the other person to be able to do this systematically? And for anybody that wasn't on the call early on, what I was saying is there was if anybody's not getting on that call right before this with John Sy, you know, he's doing multiple millions of dollars worth of business. And the agent we just had on there today, you know, does over $2 million worth of business. He's 32 years old, and, you know, he's not a hot shot on TV or something. He's a legitimate business. He runs the business the way it should be run, and he had some really good things to say. So if there's a recording of that, which there will be, I highly suggest watching that. He's got more business sense in his little finger than I have in my entire being. So I would highly suggest going to that every week and listening to who John has on there, because I learned a hell of a lot today. And a couple things I learned is, it's inventory time right now for me. I'm getting a little complacent. I am going to take a serious look at why the fuck I'm doing this, why I have these goals, what my business looks like right now. Have I achieved my goals for the year? Am I anywhere near achieving them? If I surpassed them, what do I need to change? And I need to take an inventory of my entire business right now. And that's something that top producers do on a regular basis, but now's the time. So if you guys are struggling and you don't see a lot of business, you have to, in my opinion, you have to get organized. You have to take an inventory. You have to systematize what you're doing. And most importantly, you're going to have to generate some business by prospecting. That's just all there is to it. So any questions that we can help you guys with? Hey, Jim, what happened to that buyer that you were potentially writing an offer for?
Still out there. Still out there.
Still looking?